all going to be influencers soon on YouTube. You're making your big debut maybe tonight. Everything, we will use the chat feature, or if you need to, you can use the chat feature. Travis is here and will help monitor that for us.
Okay, great.
And so but just remember the chat is part of the permanent record as well. And that's my little guide for that. We can see how it goes. You may need to mute during the meeting until you're ready to speak. If we're getting some background, Travis or I will probably mute everybody and just unmute the speaker. So just kind of bear that in mind if you do go to speak, if you're muted. So I'll turn it back over. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Kathy, can we calling this our first Zoom meeting of the Wildwood Celebration Committee? And Kathy, can you take the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Here.
Commissioner Stevens.
Here.
Commissioner Hudson.
Sharon's
I'm here.
Okay, she's got it. There we go. Commissioner Tripp.
Here.
Commissioner Lawson.
Here.
Commissioner Ward.
here.
Commissioner Chair Siebert. Council Liaison Garitano.
Here.
And Staff Liaison Cruz.
Here.
Okay, roll call complete, Kathy?
Yes, ma'am. All are in attendance. Thank you.
All right. The next thing on the agenda, approval of the minutes from March 4th, 2020.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, then the minutes are approved. All in favor, please?
Aye.
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 Okay. All right, since there are no objections to that, the next thing on the agenda, public comments. Have any been submitted?
There were none submitted in advance. There are two attendees that are listening in on the meeting. And I would ask that if either one of them would like to speak now, if they would either use the raise hand feature or type something in the chat, and then we can promote them over so that they can provide their public comment. They may just be here to listen as well. So give them just a minute. Okay, I'm not seeing any.
I just want to recognize we have Councilmember Remy that is one of the attendees.
He is. I accidentally promoted him to a panelist and he zipped out and went in the other side again. So I don't think he has public comment would be my guess. But if they do, if anyone listening has public comment, just type it up in the, give me a high sign in the chat and we'll get you in. So I think we can go on to the next item, Madam Chair.
Okay, the next item is number 5, the 2020 Celebrate Wildwood event, which is going to be on October 10th, which is a Saturday. And the first item under that category is the potential changes to the event due to COVID-19. And we can open that up for discussion. I would like to make a comment on that first. And my comment is, due to the governor opening up this state and going forward, how many people are really going to go to events as the state opens up? And another problem could be a second wave of this virus. And it would be sad to put all the money and time and effort into an event if the participation is not going to be good, if it's going to be a minimal participation. So I'd like to know what everyone else's feelings are, and if Mr. Bunich can give us a date, the latest date possible for a go or no go on this event. That's my comment.
Well, I agree. The most salient point is, when is our last day to pull out without,
Mhm,
I think it's so many variables that are unknown at this point.
right.
It's hard to really go forward and make big plans when you don't know.
Vicky,
I'd like to hear from Joe and the city and see their thoughts on all of this, please.
Well, certainly, the city's been considering this for a bit. And quite frankly, we're not 100% sure what direction we need to go. Obviously, the state of Missouri can do what it chooses, but as long as the county executive, Sam Page, continues to issue executive orders, those are generally the ones we'll follow. And as a municipality in St. Louis County, we'll adhere to those as best we can. To answer the question about when is our drop dead date, we're close to it. A lot of the items that we rent to support the event, such as tables and chairs and tents and stages and electric, those people are contacting Gary and asking about commitments, because they all believe by October there'll be a demand, and that demand obviously may be substantial. And so we're struggling with, what do we do? Because a lot of those companies, those providers of services, want deposits as well. So we're kind of in a tough situation right now. We've got people wanting us to commit because they want, obviously, to get their calendars squared away. But we're not 100% sure, as the chairs mentioned, even if we have it, how many people will come. And we certainly don't want to start investing a lot of money and then have something that we're not expecting or might expect occur. So we're at that stage.
So I have two questions, and one would be, do we have insurance for anything like this, which, since we've never seen anything like this before, I have no idea. And the second thing would be, and I don't know, I kind of, what if we just planned on a one-day event instead of a two-day art festival? I don't know if that would even matter, but are you hearing from art people, the artists, to find out their thoughts on it at all?
Well, Ms. Helfrey, we can purchase insurance. We purchased weather insurance for a number of our events last year, so we can certainly do that again. The insurance costs thousands of dollars, and so it's a risk. And I'm not 100% sure if it even would cover something like this, just poor attendance or low attendance. Like I say, we purchase weather insurance. And certainly the decision whether it's a 2-day or 1-day event is up to the commission members, not necessarily city staff.
Well, have we, since it's such an unusual time and it's just, it's uncharted waters, have we considered some kind of online celebration, some sort of, and I don't know what that might look like, but I'm just saying our paradigms are all shifting, and we may have to look at alternative ways of delivery.
Well, we've certainly have done a lot of virtual events to date. We're trying to keep the community engaged and give them something to do. As we go along, we're not proud. So if people, other communities, other people do things that are interesting, we're glad to copy that or mirror that and try to make it as best as possible for Wildwood. So from that perspective, we certainly, if that's a direction the commission wants to go, we can try. I think Gary, Kathy, and I were not at the point where we're ready to throw in the towel. It is still almost 6 months from now, and a lot can happen. Obviously, there is a concern that the COVID-19 coronavirus might even be worse in the fall and winter of the remainder of this year and the upcoming year. But we did lay out some options for you all to consider. But certainly, it's your direction we're seeking tonight.
Susan, can I comment?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I do think that we've got a couple of factors that we need to take into consideration on what our next steps will be for this event. First is about the safety of participants, and knowing that we have an evolving situation with this virus and the restrictions that have been put in place by the county, as well as social distancing guidelines. We have to be cognizant that that's going to change the dynamic if we decide to hold any kind of event later this year. So that's the first thing. Secondly is certainly the uncertainty with the situation that we have with the virus, the uncertainty of whether it will be better, worse, or the same as it is currently. Another third factor is that this is also our 25th anniversary. This was supposed to be our big year. So regardless of whether we have an event or not, we still do something to recognize the 25th.
Right.
Absolutely.
Maybe still a virtual 25th anniversary event or some kind of acceptable type of event that would be safe. So that's something we want to think about. To Joe's point, the pent-up demand, I think that does raise a good point that, you know, there are some people that are betting on that things will be picking up back to normal later on this year. And again, this is the uncertainty, this is the gamble that we will have to take. And having gone through already a couple of months, right? I guess basically since March, feels like a long time. If the situation gets better, we may want to have some kind of event for the morale of our community. Something that, you know, may need to happen because we just don't want to write off the whole year. You know, and so again, it ties into probably what we've talked about before, that it may have to be some type of safe event that's changing the dynamic of what we've always planned. But I wouldn't rule out that we just we cancel completely, because then it's a shame, and residents, you know, depend on situations or events like this. It really helps to bring the community together, and it helps with the morale. And so, you know, I would envision that there has to be some things that go on, some normalcy. The other factor is the fiscal factor. So again, tied to the uncertainty, that is, there's a concern that, you know, we should watch what we spend, and it's fair and valid. But I do think Wildwood is very uniquely positioned in a very good place. No one should be going around saying that there's going to be furloughs or things like that, because Wildwood, from a fiscal perspective, has a very good rainy day fund. In fact, considering our peers and cities around us, we are probably well funded, and given the reserve amount of about $11 million, Wildwood could run for a full year and collect $0. That's how well funded we are. So there's, but very fair that we need to look at being watchful of how we spend, our costs. And so just being responsible that way. But also on the flip side, we don't want to be, again, shutting down everything, because that's not how you get an economy going again. If, as a city, we stop and basically we're to shut down everything because we're concerned about being fiscally responsible, then what kind of example do we set for the rest of the community and the business, and how do things get going again, right? So we do have to, ties into some of the other situations that I brought up. So what Susan brought up about a go, no go date or drop dead date, I would certainly hope that we try to get that date or get to know what it is. And maybe it's not a decision tonight, but basically start to digest and start to continue monitoring the situation, because it will probably change over the next month. I mean, I took a drive yesterday to Labadee, and I was quite surprised to see people sitting outside a restaurant eating like it was nothing was going on. I don't know what that will be for us here in St. Louis County and with the rest of the country, but I think it's so evolving and so changing that we just can't make that decision right now. But I think all these factors I brought up are things that we have to consider as we think about what this event's going to look like or what our plans will be for the rest of the year. So those are all my points. So if we can know what the go, no go date is, and maybe we set up another meeting right before that date and come back, and maybe between now and then we'll get more new data, more new information as to what we need to factor in for a decision. Long-winded comments. Go ahead.
I would also like to see us have a plan B. I would like to go forward with it and say we're going to try to do this. But just in case, I think we need to think of different ideas that we can bring forth as a plan B. It won't hurt us. If we don't need the plan B, fantastic. But if we do, we've got something that we thought about and we can go forward with.
I agree having a plan B. And my thoughts along that line are, let's say we don't go with the initial program in October. And next year we take the money, some of the money that we've saved from not holding it this year, and do 2 events next year. And we celebrate it maybe as 25 plus 1, which would be 26 years, our 25th anniversary plus 1. And then as a plan B for this year, pick a date and somewhere in all of town center, do like a big, I don't know, ice cream fair where it's held over hours, like from 1 to 5 p.m. And we put up balloons and stuff like that. And we give the residents, ice cream sundaes or whatever they choose. And we have different vendors set up around. That's to celebrate and then promote next year's event, which hopefully maybe we'll have a vaccine and everything will be fine. All right, that would be my kind of plan B.
I'd like to circle back to the idea of if we can move forward with the event, reducing it to 1 day. I'd like to get some thoughts or feedback on that, because I think that's an intriguing idea. I think, Kathy, you had mentioned that our goal, our predictions were about 10,000 people come through over a 2-day period. Probably that number is going to drop no matter what. I do kind of worry about the vendors and the second day and the traffic. I respectfully understanding that the art community did want their own special day, and I can appreciate that. But considering the new environment that we're working in, how does the team feel about reducing the event to 1 day if in fact we move forward?
Any comments along those lines?
Why does this help us to move to one day? Because we're already at one day for the Celebrate Wildwood. So moving to one day would only affect the art show. Why does it help us to move to one day?
I just don't think we're gonna get the traffic.
Well, also, how do you orchestrate the number of people that go through in a day? Or, you know, how do you orchestrate the social distancing?
A
Well,
matter of how we set it up, ensuring that we place the vendors far enough apart and provide directions on the ground about where you stage, how you stand, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot of work, but I
Yeah.
think we can make it work. How's that?
And how do you do the participants? I mean, how do you say, okay, there's gonna be, you can only have three people at this booth that will ensure social distancing or whatever? I mean, I don't know, but I'm just saying, how do you follow through on that?
Again, it's about how we place the booths, how we sign the booths, how we place directions on the ground itself, whether it's arrows or signs, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the vendors themselves, whether they're selling food or they're artists, they'll probably manage their tents hopefully well, because there is a concern about their health as those visiting them.
If I can say something, it'll be interesting to see how the artists react to a one day, because most of them really aren't interested in one day, because that's a lot of work for them to set up for one day. So I think if we limited it to one day, we'd end up with just the crafters and the book artists, I would think.
so could I suggest maybe as we look at meeting again before our drop dead date, that a table of different options are put together, and perhaps Joe, Gary, and the rest of the staff can put pros and cons. Of course, anyone can offer suggestions or ideas for either one of the options or a new option. But just a couple of thoughts on the 1 day versus 2 day. If you do 1 day, you could also increase the density, because now you're packing it into 1 day. So just a thought, because that would work against your social distancing. So if you keep it to 2 days, maybe 1 day is themed more for a younger crowd or children, and the other day might be more for an older crowd. So that hopefully maybe you're breaking up the crowd a little bit based on either age or interest, the type of music that's playing. So just a couple of thoughts there, but I don't know that we're going to be able to figure it out tonight, but I think it will require some analysis.
Joe, a comment on if we do go that route, if that is something that our committee is interested in. With children, as with anything, everything is going to have to be cleaned. It's going to have to be disinfected. That means all those rides and things like that for the kids, they're going to have to wipe them down. And the same with all the vendors too.
Well, in looking at staff suggestions on the handout in the kids area, they are recommending, or should be under consideration, eliminating most of those activities because of the social distancing risks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. I saw that.
Well, I think Joe makes some really good, thoughtful points. I did see that, was it Lemire, and maybe Corey can speak to that, they did an online or virtual art fair. Do you know anything about that? I just saw it on some news feed, I guess.
I don't know about it.
Oh,
That's an interesting idea.
I don't know.
I know that some of the galleries around are trying to do virtual shows at the gallery and virtual sales. But I haven't talked to anybody about how that's going, except I did talk to one artist yesterday who said out of his 13 galleries, 12 of them are closed. And he went from his best month ever to $15 last month.
Wow.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I would like to, the thought keeps bubbling up in my mind is, for me personally, if I were going to book an expensive trip, would I put the money out there to book an expensive trip in October right now? Would I commit to 6 months out? I would not.
No,
Me neither.
I agree. I would not either.
No.
Madam Chair,
There's too much. There's too much unknown, and there's the downside seems very likely to me. That's all I have to say about it. Is I would not do it myself, and I don't know if we should be doing that either with the city's money.
And the other thing is, with so many people out of work, and not all are guaranteed to get their job back. How much disposable income are they going to have to spend at an art fair?
Well, yeah.
You know, that's something.
Of course, I'm looking at opening the gallery up. I'm exactly having the same thoughts. Is who's going to come in? We can manage 6 foot distancing pretty easy in the gallery because it's very large. But who's going to come in? Will people want to be buying, or maybe they'll really want to buy because they just dying to do that?
Right.
But don't know.
Madam Chair, Dr. Remy has offered to shed some light from a medical perspective, so I'm going to go ahead and, if that's okay, add him
Thank
to
you.
the panel.
Good.
Also, Kathy, I think Ken wants to say something.
Sure. Hi. Sorry. I'm released now. I can actually speak. I'm happy to.
In
I'm
San
happy to
Francisco.
answer any questions regarding COVID. I'm a COVID expert. I do this every day now. So I don't know if you guys know that, but I'm happy to maybe give you guys some insights. But I can make some general comments. Give me 1 second. I just want to drop this off here. So I think a lot of the considerations that you guys are all making are really important. I do think, though, that, like Mr. Vunich had said, we're about 5 months away. So I honestly wouldn't even make any plans to alter your plans at this point until we wait a little bit longer. And there's a couple of good cues to tell you that. Contrary to what people may be hearing on the news, our numbers of hospitalization have been dramatically decreasing over the past couple of weeks, which is a good thing. I know people keep hearing about that the numbers in the state are higher, but what you're finding out is that more people are getting tested. And frankly, the hospitalizations are across the board in this region and across the state have been decreasing. And I think that's a positive sign. Now, there was a mention about a second wave. This is all very much conjecture. And so frankly, no one at this point knows the seasonality of this virus, or whether there is going to be a seasonality because of when this virus has been peaking in a lot of different regions of the United States. So it's hard to tell. My recommendation would be just wait another month or so. There's some good cues. For instance, in respect to social distancing, we'll know by July if we're sending our kids to college and or to school. If kids are going back to school, I don't find that any different than holding this event in October, because you're talking about a much higher density in a smaller area potentially. And so I think that you could make the appropriate accommodations to have this event. Now, I thought for a second about the concept of what about pushing the event to the holiday fest during December? Also a reasonable option. You get 2 more months. However, you're really getting into the meat of the seasonal flu, human metapneumovirus, rhinoenterovirus, and a whole host of other seasonal viruses. So I don't know that that's a good idea yet until we know a little bit more information. And then the other piece I was going to just mention was, in regards to children's rides and those things, to be honest with you, children are actually doing remarkably well through this whole disease. And in fact, there are some among my community in the scientific community that are suggesting put the kids back to school to develop earlier herd immunity among the entire community, because their outcomes are so much better than their 45 to 75-year-old counterparts. And so I don't know that canceling kids' rides is a good idea. And I would actually posit that wiping down rides after children or anyone is probably the practice that should have been in place before all of this COVID stuff occurred. So my suggestion, honestly, is I think these are really nice contingencies, but they may be somewhat premature. Just wait another month, month and a half, and I think you'll see exactly, we'll have better understanding and more certainty, at least what the fall may hold. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you. Mr. Vunich, what's your opinion on, can we wait another month and a half?
Again, I believe Kathy, Gary, and I are not ready to throw in the towel for October. I would defer to Gary because he talks to the vendors and those that provide the services for the event. Do we think we have another month to 6 weeks?
As you might guess, they're hungry for any kind of business that they can get right now. And I bet we could certainly talk to them about deposits too, Joe. So maybe we can get things on the calendar and not have to send a deposit, because there's always that contract thing that's always involved in there, which gives us 4 or 5 weeks.
So
Kathy,
Madam,
Ken wanted to say something. Ken McGowan. He had it on the chat that he wants to.
No, they were talking about, I think they're talking about Ken Remy.
Oh,
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, Ken.
That's all right. Thank you, though. Thanks for
Okay.
looking out for me. Thank you.
I was looking out for you.
well, Madam Chair, with your permission and those of the commission members, we'll just start contacting all of those providers over the next week or two, see if we can get commitments without any deposits, and make sure that if we do cancel, there's no ramifications to the city.
That's fine with me.
And will we get if we have to give a deposit, will it be refundable if we have to cancel? Are you still thinking about insurance? I guess I need to see the whole, the whole picture of this. So if we go forward and we are putting deposits, doesn't come off, are we just out of that money?
9 times out of 10, the deposit is, if we cancel, they keep it. And so that's what we'll ask them, given the circumstances. And I'll contact our finance manager, Dawn Kaiser. She's the one that works with our insurance broker about the rain insurance. I'll see if we can find something that fits this situation.
Okay.
Okay.
An option that you could probably ask the vendors, if they're gonna require some sort of deposit with our situation, maybe a smaller deposit would even be an option. Then if there's no refundable option, we're not out as much money.
That's
Good
a
point,
idea.
Ms. Tripp, and that's what we'll ask.
So I think based on what we're hearing, it sounds like we've got a good, I got a good sense of the group that we are not yet ready to make any kind of decision as far as what the schedule, as it is right now. We're going to continue the course, but we'll monitor the situation and regroup at a certain date that we'll find out from the conversations with the vendors.
Well, the
with the-
next meeting is scheduled for June 3rd. So that's basically 3.5 weeks from now. So that we should have a decent outlook to see what's going on.
And I would also suggest we think about some plan Bs. I mean, your idea about the ice cream social or whatever, or some other thought that, and just in case,
Right.
not starting from scratch on June, trying to come up with something.
And just for awareness, we haven't canceled, right, all of the concerts yet for Wildwood. I think we've only canceled what, through July?
We've actually canceled through the end of June. We haven't made a decision on the July concert.
So therefore, if we're still holding out on concerts, I think it's very early to make any kind of decision with the Celebrate Wildwood. Because if we can manage to pull those off or learn from those events, then we'll be able to tailor Celebrate Wildwood to be done in a safe way. And again, I think, you know, if we start to get back to some normalcy, our city might need something like this after having gone through the past month or so.
And don't commit. You don't have to commit any funds right now. You could just just get some information from the vendors without committing. And if they require a deposit, then you don't sign a contract yet. You just hold out a little longer.
And I'm going to commit that Ken Remy is going to volunteer at a dunking tank. If he does it, I will do it.
I'm encouraged by what I hear Dr. Remy saying. That gives me hope.
Yeah, and remember, and Ms. Stevens, and just to your point, like, you know, the thing about it is that we're going to get creative by October. If we're still living under these conditions of wearing a mask everywhere we go, we'll just have to figure out what's the best way. I mean, we're blessed in Wildwood with such great land space. So we could certainly have we're celebrating our 25th anniversary and the great work that members of our city and our employees and founders and everybody all together. We could have a brilliant parade through the entire city, and people can sit outside their front door, and we can have it all be via vehicle. I wouldn't cancel anything, but I think contingencies are important, but we've got more time. And so without spending a dime, which I think is important because we need to maintain that fiscal responsibility until we know more information about where our finances, we've got some more time, I think. And I bet you vendors, they're going to understand. They're hurting bad, but you know something, they're still going to be hurting in October. And I guarantee you people are not knocking on the doors, knocking down for new events. I'm sure. So I think we've got some more things ahead of us.
Okay.
Ken, I'd like to ask Ken, how are the, can you unmute him? So I don't know, can he hear? Ken, what are the Boy Scouts doing?
You mean for just scouts in general, you mean?
Yes.
Everything stopped. And so they're having the same exact discussion about summer camp. When's our drop dead date? When do we have to decide? What do we do? Girl Scouts have canceled all of their summer camps, but Boy Scouts are still deciding that. Right now, there's no meetings or anything. A lot of virtual going on, virtual merit badges, virtual outings. They just had a big national camp out where you camped in your backyard and did it virtually.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as summer camp, which is the next big thing on the agenda, the exact same discussions going on. Do we do it or do we not? When do we have to make a decision?
Thank you.
Mr. McGowan, if you all hear of something regarding the decision by the National Association or the local chapter, would you share it with us? That would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah. I'll let you know.
Thank you. So, Madam
So,
Chair, if I may,
yes.
so I think the assignment to the department is to start talking to our vendors, our service providers, see when they would need a definitive answer, and if they need a definitive answer, can it be done without a deposit? So just go through the list and see their status. And I concur with Ms. Ward. If you all have any ideas about a plan B, an event that we could hold if the circumstances were not good, but still try to have something, please provide them to us. We'll start a list as well, and that can be on the agenda in June.
That's a good idea. Okay. All right. Is there anything else then?
I have one more item, and I think we can make a decision tonight on this. With the ongoing saga of the development called the Prime, last year I told you that I didn't think there was any way possible that a project wouldn't be started sometime before our next Celebrate Wildwood. obviously, I was wrong. That project won't be starting anytime in 2020. So we can move back to the field next to the theater and Main Street if we like for 2020.
Aha, good.
So if there's no objection and there's someone willing to make a motion in a second, I'd like to have that taken care of tonight.
I make a motion that we go back to where we had it originally.
I second that motion.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, good. There we go.
That's great news, Joe.
Yes.
Well, again, my apologies. I thought from all indicators they would be moving forward, but they're not. They are part COVID-19 stopped, as well as they're still working on financing, but I talked with the owner of the property and he was glad to do it.
Well, that's the big positive on it tonight. That's exciting.
Good, good. I'm
Well,
glad
good for
you
us.
agree.
Okay. All right.
For my information, has the honey, what is it? Milk and Honey moved into the 3,
Yeah, they did.
they did? Oh,
Hmm.
good.
Yeah, they're starting to do some curbside carryout, right? I think I saw
Oh,
something
okay.
on Facebook about that.
Okay.
Oh, Jackie is doing that? The owner of Milk and Honey? She's doing curbside now?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. All right, is there anything else? If not, all in favor of adjourning? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next time we're gonna meet is June 3rd. And Joe, you'll keep us, Mr. Budich, you'll keep us apprised
Yes, ma'am.
of
If
any
something,
suggestions that we filtered to you?
yes, ma'am. As you send Plan B items to Gary, Kathy, or I, we'll get them on an ongoing list and send them out as we get them. We'll also let you know if something comes up that may alter any of the plans we have or may make things easier, make things harder. So we'll try to keep you in the loop over the next 3.5 weeks. And then we'll do our duty and get those answers for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you all very much for meeting.
Yeah. Just want to say thanks to city staff for all you do. It's incredible. We're so grateful. And Councilman Garantano and Councilman Dr. Remy, thank you both so much.
Yes, thanks.
It was great seeing all of you.
Yep, stay healthy, stay safe.
Stay safe.
Everybody.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.